After Rebirth, his ex-ugly wife's personality changed. Now the millionaire is desperate to win her back. In the bustling city of Redwood City, California, a secret pulses through the heart of those who know the peculiar tale of Ethan Roseland and Natalie Henderson. Once the power couple everyone envied, they ended their marriage in a blaze of heartbreak, betrayal, and shattered promises. But fate, in its own mysterious way, has granted Natalie a second chance, literally. After a near-fatal accident, she awakens with a changed personality, a transformed spirit, a newfound courage that unnerves even the mighty Ethan. Now, the man who once discarded her is on a desperate quest to reclaim her heart. Little does he know, love, even reborn love, can burn twice as bright and twice as painfully. Below is a dramatic, twist-filled romantic fiction novel of approximately 6,000 words. All names and events are products of the author's imagination, though a real private name, Dr. Timothy Byrne from Redwood City, California, makes an appearance in the narrative to lend a semblance of reality. Any resemblance to real persons, living or deceased, or real events, is purely coincidental. Natalie Henderson had lived most of her life in the shadow of her own desires. Growing up in a modest home in Sacramento, she was taught from an early age that love demanded sacrifice. She carried this notion all the way through college, where she studied literature, quietly hoping one day her own life would read like a glorious romance novel. But she never expected that her story would become the stuff of local legend, filled with heartbreak, regret, and an astonishing second chance. Her marriage to Ethan Roseland seemed at first like a fairy tale. Ethan, 10 years older and already a wealthy entrepreneur, had been taken by her gentle soul and radiant smile. Their early days played out like a dream, a whirlwind wedding on the shores of Lake Tahoe, an adoring family visiting them in Redwood City, and the promise of a future too golden to tarnish. However, beneath that gilded veneer lurked cracks formed by long hours, controlling behavior, and unspoken resentments. Ethan's star continued to rise. He was the charismatic CEO of Roseland Innovations, dealing with cutting-edge technologies and forging lucrative partnerships with multinational firms. For a time, Natalie was happy to stand by his side, content to offer her unwavering support. But the more successful Ethan became, the further he drifted from the warmth of home. Boardrooms, business dinners, and corporate events replaced their intimate evenings. Gradually, their once cozy loft by the Redwood Creek felt more like a hotel suite, never truly welcoming and always slightly impersonal. Through those tumultuous years, Natalie's devotion never wavered until one day it simply broke. The heartbreak was swift. Ethan declared he needed someone who could keep up with him, leaving Natalie to wonder if her only crime was loving him too tenderly. That day, she signed the divorce papers, closed the door on their Redwood City penthouse, and left the life she had built with him behind. After the divorce, Natalie felt like a ghost drifting through empty corridors. She retreated to a small apartment on the quieter side of Redwood City, unsure of who she was without Ethan by her side. Meanwhile, Ethan carried on as if unaffected, attending flashy charity galas and dominating business headlines with record-breaking deals. To the outside world, he was unstoppable, but rumors circulated about his personal demons. Some whispered he drank too much on lonely nights. Others speculated he was seeing a string of beautiful women, none of whom lasted beyond a few dates. Natalie's friends rallied around her, encouraging her to find her footing. Chief among them was her childhood pal, Cecilia Blake, who lived in the same apartment complex. Cecilia coaxed Natalie into a local book club and introduced her to new acquaintances, hoping to drag her out of the gloom. Among these new acquaintances was Dr. Timothy Byrne, a middle-aged psychologist known in Redwood City for his research into traumatic rebirth experiences, though mostly in theoretical contexts or near-death accounts from his patients. He had never met Natalie in a professional capacity then, but she recognized him from the local community events. His kind demeanor and open-minded discussions about life after trauma piqued her curiosity. Still, Natalie remained in the trenches of heartbreak. She was plagued by sleepless nights, haunted by memories of the life she had shared with Ethan. The sharper pang came not from anger, but from a deep sense of loss. She missed the man she thought she knew. Sometimes she laid in bed and could almost recall the scent of his cologne when he returned from a business trip. She remembered the tenderness in his eyes when they first danced at their wedding, illuminated by the soft glow of fairy lights. But he had changed. Or perhaps he had simply shown his true colors all along, and she had been blinded by naive devotion. She would never truly know. What she did know was that her heart had shattered and the pieces scattered, leaving her unsure if they would ever fit together again. Only 3 months after the divorce, news spread that Ethan was engaged again. The Redwood City rumor mill churned with gossip about the mystery fiancé, rumored to be a young socialite from Seattle. The tabloids even caught wind of it, showcasing pictures of Ethan attending high-profile events. A stunning brunette on his arm. Her name was Alyssa Moore, the daughter of a real estate magnate. As soon as Natalie saw those photos online, a harsh, cold acceptance sank in. Ethan had not only moved on, he had skyrocketed beyond their broken vows. Natalie's best friend, Cecilia, tried to shelter her from those scathing headlines. "They're just tabloids," Cecilia insisted. "You know how the media spins everything." But it was too late. Each photograph, each rumored wedding date, chipped away at Natalie's composure. At the same time, a stirring in her heart grew, an inexplicable sense of impending change. Dr. Timothy Byrne crossed Natalie's path at the library one afternoon. He was there to give a talk about coping mechanisms following emotional trauma. Drawn in by curiosity, Natalie took a seat in the small, softly lit conference room. She listened, enraptured, to his lecture about the possibility of emerging stronger after life's darkest storms, his voice a reassuring calm in a sea of turmoil. When the talk concluded, Natalie stayed behind to chat. Dr. Byrne recognized her from various community events he had attended with mutual acquaintances. After exchanging pleasantries, he offered her a business card. "You don't have to be alone in your healing process," he said, his voice filled with genuine compassion. "We often think we're supposed to manage pain by ourselves, but that's rarely the healthiest approach." Natalie took the card and politely tucked it into her bag, unsure if she'd ever call. She didn't feel ready for therapy, but she appreciated the concern. Little did she know that her most profound healing indeed, a kind of rebirth, loomed just over the horizon, in ways neither she nor Dr. Byrne could ever have anticipated. The accident happened on a rainy night. Natalie had been returning from a literary event, her mind buzzing with half-formed novel ideas she might try writing someday. The roads shimmered under the barrage of raindrops, streetlights reflecting on slick asphalt. Distracted by her own heartbreak and half lost in the swirling narrative she had just heard, Natalie didn't see the truck skidding across the intersection until it was too late. A sickening crunch of metal, shattered glass, and the shriek of tortured brakes tore through the silence. For a moment, everything went black. Then came a swirl of flashing lights, the echo of sirens, the panicked voices of onlookers. In a haze, she felt strong arms lifting her out of the mangled wreck of her car. She was rushed to Redwood City General Hospital. Consciousness slipped in and out as white, coated figures hovered around her bed. She remembered hearing one nurse mention her name, Natalie Henderson, verifying her identity. Another staff member mentioned an emergency contact. In a cruel twist of fate, Her emergency contact was still Ethan Roseland. She hadn't changed the form since the divorce. Ethan arrived in the hospital corridor at midnight, disheveled and paler than she had ever seen him. Despite their split, the sight of her lying motionless in the ICU bed plunged a dagger of guilt and fear into his chest. With the doctors explaining the severity of her condition, a fractured skull, internal bleeding, and multiple broken bones, Ethan clutched at the betrayal, wishing he could trade places with her. Dr. Timothy Byrne, who was present in the hospital for research, recognized Natalie. He consulted with the ICU staff as a friendly observer, though his specialty wasn't surgery. He expressed his concern to Ethan, explaining that sometimes survival hinged on factors beyond what medicine could measure. Hours turned into days. Natalie slipped into a coma. Ethan stayed by her side, haunted by memories of how their marriage ended. At times, he whispered regrets into the sterile air, confessing that he never stopped caring for her. But all was silent from the woman whose love he had once taken for granted. During Natalie's coma, she dreamed, if one could call it a dream, of drifting through a strange void where time had no meaning. Snatches of her past life flickered before her. The day she met Ethan, their first dance as husband and wife, the moment she realized he would rather chase wealth than nurture their bond. Then the imagery shifted into something else, a glimmering, endless corridor of light. She wasn't sure if she was dying or if this was some final hallucination. In the dream, a voice spoke soft, gentle, but firm. "Do you wish to continue?" She woke nearly 3 weeks later to the astonishment of the medical staff. The first person to see her open her eyes was Ethan, slumped in a chair beside her, tears staining his normally stoic face. He jolted upright, relief flooding his features. He lunged for the call button to summon the nurses, but before they arrived, she spoke. "I'm alive," she whispered, almost marveling at the sound of her own voice. He nodded, as though those words were the greatest gift the universe could offer him. But even in her morphine haze, Natalie saw something else, saw him differently. There was a new calm inside her, an unshakable core of self-possession she hadn't felt before. It was as if, in that dreamlike corridor, she had decided she would return to life, but only on her own terms. Dr. Timothy Byrne visited her during her recovery. He noticed subtle, yet radical changes in her demeanor, her posture, her gaze, the way she responded to questions. While she remained gentle, there was an unspoken confidence, an inner fire. It was rare for someone emerging from a coma to be so mentally and emotionally focused. To Dr. Byrne, it almost felt like a rebirth. As Natalie stabilized, she learned of her injuries, a long road of physical therapy to regain full mobility, pins in her left leg, and potentially months before she could walk without assistance. Yet, she faced these challenges with a fortitude that stunned those around her. She no longer recoiled from adversity. Instead, she embraced each therapy session with fierce determination, surprising even her physiotherapists. In the hallway outside her hospital room, Ethan struggled with his own awakening. Guilt gnawed at him, triggered by the realization that it took a tragedy to jolt him into seeing how precious Natalie truly was. He recalled every harsh word he had spoken, every time he'd brushed her aside. He remembered the day he demanded a divorce, claiming he needed someone more ambitious. That ugly memory haunted him now, as the woman he had once dismissed fought her way back from the brink of death. When Natalie was finally permitted visitors beyond immediate family, her dear friend Cecilia rushed in, nearly tripping over the squeaky hospital floor in her excitement. Over tears and laughter, Natalie recounted the dreamlike experience she had in her coma. She didn't share all the details, some parts felt sacred. a private vow she wasn't ready to reveal to anyone. Dr. Byrne continued to check on Natalie during her hospital stay, curious about her resilience. He suggested she keep a journal of her thoughts and feelings, a practice that often helped patients who had survived near-fatal incidents. Natalie took his advice. Each night, she filled pages with reflections on her life, her old marriage, and the new sense of purpose that glowed inside her. She wrote about the corridor and the voice she'd heard. She found that the more she wrote, the clearer her purpose became. She would not live to please others. She was reclaiming her life, piece by piece. Upon her discharge from the hospital, Natalie faced the daunting challenge of day-to-day life on crutches. Her once cozy apartment suddenly seemed fraught with obstacles: steep stairs, narrow hallways, slippery floors. Ethan, racked with guilt and propelled by a renewed sense of care, insisted on helping her transition back home. Much to her surprise, Natalie agreed, but her acceptance was measured. She knew she was a different woman now, and Ethan felt like a figure from a past life. Yet there was an unspoken understanding that he was trying to atone. He arranged for a private nurse to assist Natalie with the complexities of recovery. He even had the penthouse in Redwood City renovated for accessibility, offering it to her for the duration of her therapy. But Natalie refused to move back in with him. Instead, she accepted short visits from him, allowing him to see firsthand the daily struggles she endured. She was not cruel, but she was distant, guarded. She had no desire to step back into the role of Ethan's wife, even if that door had been pried open anew. Meanwhile, rumors swirled about Ethan's supposed engagement to Alyssa Moore. The gossip columns were rife with contradictory narratives. Some claimed the engagement had been called off due to Natalie's accident. Others swore the wedding was still on. Natalie never asked Ethan about Alyssa. In her new outlook, she found it best to let Ethan's personal entanglements remain his own burden. She had enough on her plate recovering physically and forging a new emotional landscape that no longer revolved around him. Ethan, on the other hand, wrestled with an unfamiliar surge of conflict. The more time he spent with Natalie, the more he realized how profoundly he had misjudged her. The old Natalie, quiet and submissive, had melted away, replaced by a woman of quiet strength and resolute independence. This awakened in him both admiration and a sense of desperation. Was this the woman he should have loved all along? In the midst of her physical therapy, Natalie discovered an unexpected passion: writing. She had kept her journal since Dr. Byrne's suggestion, pouring her innermost thoughts onto paper. Now, with her mobility limited, she found solace in crafting short stories, often variations of her own life experiences, though fictionalized to protect her emotional wounds. Encouraged by Cecilia, she began submitting these stories to local writing groups and online publications. To her astonishment, one of her short pieces, The Corridor of Second Chances, was picked up by a literary blog and quickly gained traction. Readers wrote to her, sharing their own stories of heartbreak and recovery. This sense of communion sparked a new ambition in Natalie. She began sketching outlines for a full novel, weaving in her near-death experience with themes of rebirth and redemption. Each evening, she spent hours at her desk, pen in hand, ignoring the ache in her leg. The words flowed as though from a newly tapped well within her spirit. Meanwhile, Ethan's business empire continued to grow, but he found himself increasingly distracted by thoughts of Natalie. He was drawn to her resilience and creativity, qualities he had once overlooked. Every so often, he dropped by her apartment with groceries or medical supplies. In those moments, their eyes met, and an unspoken tension simmered, a blend of sorrow, longing, and a hint of hope. He had not yet dared to broach the subject of reconciliation. It was too soon, and her transformation left him feeling uncertain of his own place in her life. Yet, despite her outward confidence, Natalie was hardly immune to emotional turmoil. Her nights were still fraught with restless dreams, and on more than one occasion, she found herself crying for the woman she had been, who had tried so desperately to keep her marriage alive. Still, in the morning, she would wake up, dry her tears, and stand a little straighter. She had a new life to live, and she intended to honor it. One afternoon, a week before her final checkup with the orthopedic surgeon, Natalie received a phone call from an unexpected source. Alyssa Moore. Natalie hadn't anticipated ever speaking to the woman rumored to be engaged to her ex-husband, but curiosity compelled her to answer. Alyssa's voice was surprisingly composed. She explained that she